The last two questions on our lessons, 23 and 24, we look at two questions. I picked them out, so that's why I'm asking a question. There's only three questions given, but I think verse 6, he's already experienced in this one. Would he contend with me in the greatness of his power? Nay, but he would give heed unto me. He answers the question. He doesn't have to have it answered. Would he contend with me in the greatness of his power? We already know his power has brought a pain upon him, but his confidence is that no, he would not use his power to keep destroying me, but what he would do, he'd give heed to me. I'd get to talk to him. I'd get to give my case, as if God doesn't know his righteousness already. But it seems like, why am I suffering? And that's the big elephant in the room, so to speak, that all of them are having to deal with. But verse 13, I think, is one that is a legitimate question that he has. But he is in one mind. When God determines to do something, he's in one mind. And who can turn him? Can you? Can I turn God when he's made up his mind? This is what he's going to do. And what is his soul desireth, even that he doeth? He's going to do what he wills to do. Difficulty may be for our profit. We don't understand that. Job, his friends said, no, you're being punished. And we'll get to see pretty quickly that maybe one gets pretty close to this in the latter part of the book, where this is just testing you, Job. This is trying to refine you so you will not be destroyed in the end. And maybe that's getting closer to what the other friends are saying, that the reason you're being punished is you're already wicked. Maybe it's just discipline. It's getting close. But the point is that he hadn't done anything deserving of what he's received as far as being wicked. And he holds his integrity as well throughout our study tonight. In fact, he'll say that if we get there quick enough. So that's my first question. He doesn't have an answer to, and we understand, no, he's going to do his will. And then chapter 24 and verse 1 is my second question to be answered that he doesn't have an answer for. Why are times, are seasons, why aren't they laid up? They just stack them up here so we can see them, so we can understand what's going on by the Almighty. And why do not they that know him see his days? He can't see what God's trying to do. He doesn't believe what the accusations are. He feels like, well, the wicked get punished, but the righteous do too. And maybe God doesn't care the difference of that. Maybe he doesn't see the difference in that. We're all are going to suffer. Well, that's not right either, that he doesn't see and hear and understand our dilemma. But the point is that I wish you just laid up here, I could see what he's trying to do. And that's frustrating, because we don't know specifically what he's trying to do. And I take this, you go through turns in your life that are monumental, that are watershed moments. You don't realize it sometimes. Maybe the things you were wanting to do or wanting to be involved with look good at the moment, and then God says no. And all of a sudden the opposite happens, and you're going through a very difficult time that you didn't have what you wanted, and it's worse off now, and you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Then one day you realize that was good that I didn't get to do that. I've seen that in my life. That was good. I thought that was most important, and it wasn't. And I got this pathway to life. And there's benefit. God can use you in this way, and enjoy the moments, but you look back and realize, well, God, you didn't lay that out for me so I could see what was taking place. But knowing the heart's right, that wasn't right, I'm going to put you in a right place. And we live our lives that way. And that's the confidence that whatever happens to us, we will suffer the persecution, standing for truth. We don't know where that leads. Maybe it leads nowhere. You don't have any friends in life. You may lose everything you have. So be it. At that moment, that's the truth, and I'm going to stay there, and you be faithful. And at the end, it works out pretty well. Job's latter end was pretty good, wasn't it? And he was he was a very righteous man. And I'm not trying to compare our lives with his, but his difficulty was one that to question him. It brought him to questioning God. And here's some questions he doesn't have answered yet. And God's not going to determine, I'm not going to lay out what I'm going to do. And no, you're not going to turn me. But we know, we understand that he desires to do this. We know that he will answer prayer sometime. And what he was ready to do, he turns his back upon what he's going to do. He repents of that evil he's going to bring upon you. Prayer changes that. Intercessory prayer changes that in the Bible. So realizing that when it comes down to determination, this is what he's going to do, he's going to accomplish that. And when judgment is going to come upon the people, it's going to come upon the people. Even when there may be little points of changes that are good, he's already determined he's bringing it to an end. And we've got to live with that in Babylon, with the people of Israel. And all the changes that Josiah made, God had already determined. Even Josiah, you're going to be okay. I'm going to bless you. But Israel's going down, and Josiah made all those reforms. Boy, we're doing good now. God had already determined to destroy them. Read your Bible, and it's a great lesson that we may be on the verge of a world, our society, whatever it may be going down to judgment, and all of a sudden, what does that make us do? This is going to be a generation where we're going to do better. Josiah, and we walked that path, and God wants us to walk that path, but it may be too long, too late. But what happens to my responsibility if I'm Josiah? If I'm a people of Israel, we're going to do that reform. But the reform wasn't going to last long. God already knew the wickedness of the hearts of the people. He's already set his mind to destroy them. You've got Jeremiah and you've got Zephaniah. They prophesied in the days of Josiah and spoke nothing good about Josiah's work. And we read 2 Kings, look what he did. He destroyed he took the idols out and sent the people Sodomites out, and they did the Passover. Man, it's a great, great generation. Yeah, it was. But it wasn't going to change his mind that he's already determined, I'm going to destroy the people. And it makes you wonder, was Jeremiah and Zephaniah, were they coming along with Josiah at the age of 8 years old and telling people how bad they are, and then they changed? But if the changes were happening, Jeremiah and them were still talking about doom coming. They said nothing about his work. It is remarkable what Josiah accomplished. God blessed him. And God blessed those people during that generation. But it wasn't long of that the reality came. And I just use that as an illustration that doesn't change things. Well, the world's gone to the dogs, and let's just quit being the church. We may be the last generation that's going to serve God, and we're going to be responsible for our actions. Make it the best. Let's make this the best congregation we can be, and the best people. You and I live in this world. God may have already determined that in a few years from now, this country's gone, or this world's going to be burned up. We say, just see some righteous people. We could change the hearts of people. We'll try it. And the only thing that will change the hearts of people is the Word of God that changes hearts. And it may be a generation, we may have, I think things are turning out. But we don't know what he knows and what he's already determined, that his judgments come, because he may have said, my long suffering's gone. Josiah and Parkview, you just keep, that's good. Good. But it's gone. And if we thought of that, then we'll sit there and be depressed all the time. We'd quit. We can't do that. And if we're going to be faithful, and then the comforting thing comes, we say, well, Josiah, they didn't have a change of their heart. The comforting thing is that Josiah had a change of heart, and he was the leader. He got people in line. He got the prophets in line, and priests in line, rather. And things were good. They hadn't kept a Passover like that since the very beginning. And then that generation goes. And we also see that it takes just one generation to change something. Josiah's a great example of that. Got a sorry father. Got a grandfather was pretty good, but a sorry father, and just went to the dogs, and all of a sudden, one generation, it's good. So that's how you stay optimistic, and you stay faithful, even when you realize, God, you hadn't laid this out for me. I hope this is not the case, but we're going to do in our generation and please thee, like Josiah. And my prayers may be answered no. That's why I hope this turns our country and turns the church to be better received and so forth. It may be no, because who's going to turn him when he says it's over? Nobody. And his wisdom is greater than ours. 2 questions he's got that faith is going to have to just wait for an answer. And I think that's important. Any comments on that, or anything you want to add to that? What's the last question here? What is Job relying on despite his questions? He's relying on his experience that he's had. He's just telling it like it is of what he's been through, and indeed they're the wicked that are involved in the things that he's paints the picture of the wicked, and we see that in the latter part of chapter 24, when he says, here's what all I know is that here's what happens to the wicked. And the point is, sometimes they prosper for a while. That's been his point. And he will do. Why do not they know him, see his days? There are those who remove the landmarks. They violently take away the flocks. They drive away the donkey of the fatherless. They take the widow's ox for a pledge. They turn the needy out of the way. Then they work for the rich man, or the wicked man is rich. They cut their provender in the field. They glean the vintage of the wicked, and that lie all night naked without clothing. The wicked rich, they don't care about the workers. And they're wet with the showers of the mountains. They embrace the rock for a want of shelter. Have you ever been there? Maybe been on a camping trip, and water comes, the rain hits, and you're wet, and you don't have enough clothing, just grasping a rock for warmth. You're wet with the showers of the mountains. You embrace the rock for a want of shelter. They pluck the fatherless away from the breast, a place of comfort. The fatherless, they don't have it. Whatever comfort they had, they take away them. They take away the pledge of the poor. I don't have much. Poor. I take away what pledge you had. They go about naked without clothing. They're hungry. Verse 12, for out of the population city men groan, and the soul of the wounded crieth out, yet God regardeth not the folly. He lets them get by with this, and the people are suffering, and the wicked prosper. That's his point. And he's relying on his experience. And who would argue with that? I'm not going to argue with it. We see that happen all the time. How come all these people lie all the time? They're rich, and they get by with things. Verse 13, these are them that rebel against the light. They know not the ways thereof, nor abide in the paths thereof. What does the murderer do? We're going to look at a murderer and a fornicator. The murderer riseth with the light. He killeth the poor and needy. Why would he do that in the daylight? Because they don't have anybody in their corner. But I'll tell you what, at nighttime, he will come in. At night, he will then be a thief. Because, see, in the night, he is a thief. The eye also of the adulterer waiteth for the twilight. Why? Because nobody will see him or see her. Verse 16, in the dark they dig through the houses. I think he's getting back to the thief now. In the dark they dig through the houses. They shut themselves up in the daytime. They know not the light. They don't work in the daylight. But they kill in the daylight because they know that that's going to happen to them. Poor and needy don't have anybody caring for them anyway. And so the wicked are getting by with things. And that's been his experience. Swiftly they pass away upon the face of the earth. Now, here it's like passing, like you got a fast canoe It's cut through the waters. That's the picture I have. Swiftly they pass away upon the face of the waters. Their portion is cursed in the earth. They turn not into the way of the vineyards. So they're going by quickly, but what they had in possession, they don't even turn in to work the vineyards. They're moving on. Drought and heat consume the snow waters. So does Sheol, those that have sinned. The womb shall forget him. The worm shall feed sweetly on him. Think of that. The womb, I'm born in this world, the womb shall forget him, and the worm shall feed sweetly on him. What's happened there? Our body has died, and who's eating it? It's sweet for the worm. I'm born, who cares? I die, the worm cares. He shall be no more remembered, and unrighteousness shall be broken as a tree. They're going to meet their doom, Job says. Either devoureth the barren that beareth not, and doeth not good to the widow, yet God preserves the mighty by his power. For some reason, God hadn't laid it up for me to see that. I wish he would. I wish he would. I don't know if I could change him. When he decides to do something, he'll do it. I think he would contend with me if I got a chance. Just trying to figure it out. And he preserves the mighty by his power. He riseth up that hath no assurance of life. So he's going to bring them up. He's going to preserve the mighty. God giveth them to be in security, and they rest thereon, and his eyes are upon their ways. God will look over the needy ones. But they go through a time of suffering. And then, so he says he preserves the mighty, but at the end, his justice is done, given. They that are exalted, yet a little while, and they're gone. They're kind of like that fast canoe that went along the way, and he didn't stop by the vineyard to tend it because the works that he does in this earth are not going to be blessed. They're going to be preserved for a while, but he's moving on. And they that are exalted in a little while, that are gone, yea, that are thought low, that are shaken out of the way as all others. Everybody goes. And are cut off as the tops of the ears of grain. And if it be not so now, who will prove me a liar? I am relying on experience. I've got two questions. Trying to figure that out. And make my speech nothing worth. They haven't answered his questions. Here's my experience. Deal with it. And he realizes God can raise the lowly when he wills to do so. He can do what he wants to. He can preserve the wicked, and he does that sometime. But I know at the end, they'll be brought low. They'll be brought low. The womb will forget, the worm will eat sweetly, for a rich man and a poor man too. That's where Job is. And what's happening is his suffering that he's going through. But who's going to be proving me a liar? He's challenging these three friends. And could you tell me their names? And you got them right in order. Who's about, in chapter 25, to speak? Eliphaz has spoken. We're in our round robin turn. Bildad's going to speak now. Does he give a long speech? You think he's given out? So we've seen from chapter 4, Eliphaz, Bildad, Zophar. Eliphaz, Bildad, Zophar. And all of a sudden, Eliphaz, Bildad just trickled a little bit. You know, he's got a little something to say. And you never hear from Zophar again, do you? Where's his third speech? It's not there. I think they've given up. And it's time for God to speak in a few more. No, Elihu, who is the Elihu, how do you say that, is going to speak. He's been waiting because these three men were older than he was. And he's a young man that says, y'all hadn't treated him right. And he's going to give his explanation of things, which maybe will get closer to truth, as we've already said in the introduction. But I just want you to know what's laid out here, and Job is going to answer this, but Job has challenged them, and you come back with 6 verses from Bildad, and then he's done. And yet he's had a lot to say before, and Zophar won't say anything anymore. They quit dealing with that. So let's look at Bildad in these first 6 verses. Why is it that Bildad's statements, true as they are, fail to help Job? So let's look at 2 things, and I think you can bring this out. 2 points that he makes that I think Job would agree with. I think you and I would agree with. See if you could, here's this 2 point, and have them, you can verbally articulate them. Then answered Bildad, the Shuhite, and said, dominion and fear are with him. He maketh peace in his high places. Is there any number of his armies? And upon whom doth not the light arise? How then can man be just with God? Or how can he be clean that is born of a woman? So, what does he say about the truth that he's setting forth in those first 4 verses? The majesty of God is so high that we can never come to his presence and be equal to him. How can man be just with God when he is so his dominion and fear? He's not talking about Job, he's talking about God. Is there any number of his armies, the host of heaven, upon whom doth not his light arise? He created the sun, and we're looking forward to it every morning as the world turns. And at the end of the day, the whole world's been brightened. Then how can man be just and right with a God so high and majestic? We're not there. Nobody's arguing with that. Job would agree with that. Sure doesn't help him any. Why am I suffering? Verse 5. Behold, even the moon hath no brightness, and the stars are not pure in his sight. How much less men that is a worm, and the Son of Man that is a worm. There's where this is where you are compared to his majesty. You're like a what? A worm. How lowly are you when you're a worm? Can you crawl under a worm? I'm as low today as a worm. Have you ever heard that? Hadn't either. I think it'd be valid though. I can't crawl under a centipede. Well, yeah, I see a lot of legs moving, but I can't get under a worm either. Snake's belly, that's East Texas, I guess. I'm as low as a snake's belly. Maybe I would just stay with that one. But we have in our songbooks, the words were changed at Calvary. Such a worm as I. That's the way the song was, because God is so great. And it's that point, we're not arguing with that. But such a worm as I. Now, what is it taken to? Because we want to be, we're not worms. We're not a bag of dirt. We're people made in the image of God. So it's changed. Such a one as I. I think our song says it. Such a one as I. Realizing the imagery is from the Bible. And the imagery is that, why would he do that for me, lowly me? And the worm is used for that purpose. Yes, sir?
The first word, the New King James, it renders it even worse in my mind than worm. It uses the term maggot.
Well.
Something that is to me a whole lot more despicable than a worm. But that being said, to me, what Bildad is saying here is about
Yeah.
And that's one problem with that kind of reason, beyond, falsely implicating Job.
Any other thoughts? That's right. Worms do what maggots do when it's a dead body. So they're both doing the same stuff. But we have, our psalm book was originally, it's kind of way people don't know, we don't want to think ourselves that lowly, but this doesn't hurt to show the humility that is there. And so Bildad says the truth. Who's going to be just with God? And the whole point is, you're going to have to wake up, Job, because God's punishing you. Therefore, you can't even think about being as high as he is. We know what your problem is. But that doesn't help. That doesn't help him at all. So what do we notice in chapter 26? Job answers now. That's the end. He makes a statement about the majesty of God and the lowliness of man. Okay, we're okay. Why am I suffering? And they can't answer that part. How did Job relate God to nature and manifesting God's majesty? Because he does it. God's majestic, and his sun shines, and his armies prevail.
He compares all the wonderful things that happen in nature, and even the scary things, and it says that these are mere edges of his ways.
That's right. That's exactly right. But before he does, notice he gets his dig in to those guys. How hast thou helped him? So they think, let's put it on their back. They think this is how they're thinking. We've helped him see his problem. How hast thou counseled him? We counseled Job. And we gave him plenty of knowledge. We've uttered words that he should accept. And Job, that's kind of the attitude that they have. And Job, at least Job senses this. And notice how he does it. How hast thou helped him that is without power? I don't have any power left. I'm scraping up these boils in the ash heap. I've got boils at the top of my head, the bottom of my feet. I've been told by you that I'm such a sinner when he's not. How hast thou saved the arm that hath no strength? I can't do anything anymore. How hast thou counseled him that hath no wisdom? How have you done that? Say, I don't have any wisdom. Where have you given any? And plentifully declared sound knowledge. And let me ask you this. To whom hast thou uttered words, and whose spirit came forth from thee? You got God's spirit in you? You're speaking from God's perspective? And it tells you what he thinks of them, and they're trying to help him. And you have to determine, is that fair or not? But they've been doubling down on what a sinner he is, which was not even true anymore. We saw that last time where you took the pledge from a poor man. You didn't help a widow. That was never brought out in the life of Job. So in verse 5, they that are deceased tremble beneath the waters and the inhabitants thereof. Sheol is naked before God. So he relates, there's three things: majesty, power, and wisdom. Those are three words that kind of sum up what we're looking at here. Let's talk about his majesty. We're going to go the deepest we can go, and that is the grave, Sheol, and we'll go as high as we can go, and that's the throne of God. He takes his majesty. He's that high and connected with our experience. We could never make it that high on our holiness. But he says Sheol is naked before God. Something that low, and he's so high, he can see it. And Sheol is the grave. Destruction, abandoned, hath no covering. The place of destruction, and from the standpoint of just the human body, it's going to be destroyed. It's a place of abandonment where Job throughout this book said, will he get out of that? Well, you come out of Sheol. I hope that I know my Redeemer lives, and if that's going to happen, I could wait for him. He's back and forth, but he acknowledges that's the end of me as far as this life is concerned. And by the way, I wish I were already there. He's done that a couple of times. So Sheol is the lowest. It's open to God. He's so high, and it's still open to him. He stretches out, so there's his majesty, even the abandoned, that bottomless pit of destruction that everybody goes through as our bodies are destroyed in death. It has no covering from him. You and I, we don't see that. He stretched, unless we dig the body up, we don't see the grave or what lies beyond the grave. He stretcheth out the north over the empty space. So you're Job. You're living in, we're going to see things already in place from 3 to 4 BC, or 5 to BC. So you're looking at 1,000 years before Christ. David looked out into the stars, and look how beautiful he sets forth the majesty of God. And he stretched out the north in the empty place. He hangeth the earth upon what? Thank you. He hangs the earth upon what? I think a big old turtle's back. Or maybe that big old strong man, Atlas. Maybe it's on his back. He hangs it on nothing. Would that be kind of, you might not know a lot about science at 4000 BC, things, but it kind of looks like we're just stuck there. Where are the wires? Where are the cables? So you had the fantasies of men that it had to be on the back of something of substance, turtle or Atlas, that he's going to have to hold it up. And yet Job in chapter 9 will talk about the pillars of the earth. And Job, which is it? You got some pillars of the earth that's holding it up, or is it hung on nothing? He hasn't contradicted himself. Pillars denote the strength. By the power of his word, it's stuck there. And in the north, it's a stretch of empty space. And he hangs it on nothing. There's the power of his word, of holding it together or bringing it about. And that's part of what makes God so great and majestic. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah, we haven't got to 28 yet. It's even greater of what he says. He has described a boundary upon the face of the waters, upon the confines of light and darkness. He holds the waters in their place. There's his power. The pillars of heaven tremble and are astonished at his rebuke. Here are the pillars of heaven, but God can rebuke them, and of course they can roll them up. He stirreth up the sea with his power, and by his understanding he smiteth through Rahab. We've come across Rahab before, and so that sounds like a lady's name, a person's name. But we'll see it in Isaiah, and we'll see it chapter 9 of there and here, and the word denotes the idea of someone that causes a stir because of their arrogance. They think they're so great. Now Isaiah said that's Egypt. And as they can stir up things and they think they're real great, and the arrogance, I'll bring them down. And whether this is a sea monster that we're looking at here in this context, it's something stirring up the waters, whether that's a sea monster, he's able to bring all of that commotion down. He has that kind of power. By his spirit are the heavens garnished, and his hand hath pierced the swift serpent. See, maybe that's Rahab, swift serpent going through the sea. He's brought them all down. Lo, these are but the outskirts of his ways. When he says the outskirts of his ways, as David said, the beautiful characterization of the earth and its place and garnished the stars and so forth. and the beauty of that, his power and his majesty and his wisdom that bring things in are important too. For example, he spreadeth his cloud upon it, verse 9. He described a boundary for the face of the waters, confines of light and darkness, and so forth. And it says, these are but the outskirts of his ways. How shall a whisper do, and how small a whisper do we hear of him, but the thunder of his power, who can withstand? You know, here's a whisper, but what do you think about it? That's a thunderous thing because of his great power. Who can understand the thunder of his power? It's a small whisper. This is the outskirts. He just hung the earth on nothing. We know he brought it into existence, his power, and we sit there and say, this is just the outskirts. This is just, when it's outskirts, it's kind of, that's just the hem of the garment. You haven't seen the garments yet of how powerful he could be. And so that brings that chapter to an end. His power, his majesty, his great wisdom of how he can bring things together and hold things in their place, and the lightning, the water comes when it's supposed to, and all that sort of thing, and his wisdom. Any comments on that you might have? How he related that? All right, Lord willing, next time, how long will Job maintain his integrity? We didn't get there, did we? We're trying. And we'll talk about that, Lord willing, next time.